Have you ever hit failure in a workout, legs shaking, breathing messy, completely convinced you're done, and then, just a few seconds later, realized you could still walk, talk, or even sprint? I felt this during High Rocks Yokohama. Right after the lunges, I was certain my body had reached its limit. My legs felt flooded, my breathing collapsed, and it felt like the engine had stalled. But the moment I realized it was the final run, something switched. Suddenly, I had another gear, and I even finished the wall balls without collapsing. If my body was truly finished, that shouldn't be possible, and this isn't just my experience. Lab data shows the exact same contradiction. In one study, cyclists rode at a constant, brutal power until they said, "I physically cannot hold this anymore." But seconds later, those same athletes produced 3 times that power in a 5-second sprint. Their muscles were tired, yes, but nowhere near empty. So if you can still produce that much power after quitting, what is actually stopping you? Today, we're unpacking what modern exercise science now understands. Why your brain, not your muscles, usually decides when you stop, and how you can train this system instead of being controlled by it. Welcome back. I'm Minato, based in Tokyo. On this channel, we break down human performance like a system, how training, physiology, and habits interact, not as a coach giving instructions, but as someone testing these ideas daily through CrossFit, High Rocks, and running. And today, we're challenging one of the biggest misunderstandings in fitness: why your brain quits long before your body reaches its true limit. For most of our lives, we heard the same story. You stop because the engine fails, not enough oxygen, too much lactate, acidity rises, the machinery jams. In that old model, exercise ends when the body physically cannot go on. But real-world behavior destroys this idea. Marathon runners who look destroyed still sprint at the finish line. After a so-called max squat set, you can walk away, talk, even repeat a short effort. And when scientists measure ATP and metabolites inside the muscle at exhaustion, they're low but nowhere near zero. If the hardware still has fuel, the shutdown command didn't come from the muscle. It came from the control system. This brings us to the central governor model introduced by Tim Noakes. Imagine your brain not as a cheerleader, but as a cautious systems engineer. Its priority isn't performance, it's survival. Your brain constantly scans internal sensors like body temperature, blood pressure, oxygen availability, metabolic stress, and even emotional threat. It runs a prediction. If we maintain this pace, will we reach danger before we finish? If the answer is even maybe, your brain doesn't wait for catastrophe. It imposes a safety margin. It limits how many muscle fibers you're allowed to recruit long before you reach a true physical boundary. You don't feel this as a sudden shutdown. You feel it as rising effort, the heaviness, the burning, the urge to slow down. It's not the engine exploding, it's the warning light on your dashboard. But the central governor has a blind spot. It explains protection, but not experience. It doesn't explain why effort can double on a bad day or why motivation can override fatigue. That's where the next model completes the picture. Samuele Marcora's psychobiological model reframes fatigue entirely. You don't stop when your body hits a wall. You stop when your perception of effort becomes higher than your motivation to continue. As long as motivation is greater than effort, you keep going. When effort surpasses motivation, you quit. This explains why people push harder in races than in training. The goal matters more, so your brain tolerates more discomfort. And it explains the cycling study perfectly. Those athletes didn't stop because their legs couldn't push 240 watts. Moments later, they sprinted at over 700 watts. They stopped because the subjective cost of holding that pace felt too high. Fatigue is a decision threshold, not a mechanical failure. If effort drives that decision, we need to understand what effort actually is. Most people assume effort is muscle pain, but modern neuroscience shows otherwise. Effort is created inside the brain. When your motor cortex sends a command to your muscles, it also sends a copy of that command and efference copy to sensory brain regions. Your brain uses this copy to estimate how hard it is to maintain your current output. When you're fresh, the signal is small and effort feels low. When you're fatigued, the brain must send a larger command and effort feels high. You're not feeling your muscles fail. You're feeling the strength of the neural drive required to move them. Neurochemistry shifts this perception even more. Serotonin rises during prolonged effort, bringing lethargy and the feeling of, I'm done. Dopamine supports motivation, drive, and willingness to endure discomfort. The ratio between the two may be one of the clearest signatures of central fatigue. This is why the same pace can feel smooth on Monday and impossible on Thursday. Your body didn't change, your brain state did. Mental fatigue provides some of the strongest proof of this. In studies where people do 60 to 90 minutes of demanding cognitive work and then exercise, endurance drops, pacing falls apart, and time to exhaustion shrinks. But heart rate, lactate, and oxygen consumption at the same workload remain nearly identical to when they're fresh. The body didn't get weaker, the effort signal got louder. I experience this constantly. After a full day of deep work, my legs are physically fresh, but intervals feel unreasonably hard. The hardware is ready, the software is strained. This is central fatigue in action. F fatigue is partly a software issue. We can train the operating system, not just the engine. Here are 4 methods I use in my own training. First, structured self-talk. During hard efforts, I literally talk to myself. Stay smooth, stay calm, 1 more minute, you've been here before. This isn't hype, this directly modulates the brain's alarm system. In controlled studies, structured self-talk improved performance by nearly 20% without changing physiological markers. You're not changing the body, you're changing the interpretation. Second, chunking. Your brain predicts threat based on remaining distance. Say, 5 kilometers left, and effort skyrockets. Say, just run to that next cone, and the threat collapses. Chunking prevents the governor from activating the early brakes. Third, exposure training. Every time you enter a difficult zone and come out safely, you rewrite your brain's threat model. You teach it that heart rate 180 is survivable, that this level of discomfort is normal. Intervals don't just build VO2 max, they build neural confidence. Fourth, manage cognitive load. Mental fatigue raises perceived effort. Treat cognitive stress like training stress. Avoid key sessions after intense mental work if possible. Before races or benchmarks, reduce screen time and decisions. You're not just preserving muscles, you're preserving processing bandwidth. The old story said, you're tired because your body is done. The truth is far more empowering. Your body almost always has more to give than your brain allows. Fatigue isn't a red light. It's a negotiation between physiology, perception, and motivation. Once you understand how that negotiation works, I'm tired becomes the beginning of a conversation, not the end of your effort. If you want to learn how to build training, pacing, and habits like a system, consider subscribing. We do this every week, and I'll see you in the next one.